Welcome everyone, and thank you for tuning in to this month's webinar for busy lawyers. My name is Susan Letterman-White. I'm a practice advisor here at Mass LoMap, and I am absolutely delighted today to bring you our next very practical webinar so that within 20 to 30 minutes, you're going to walk away with some very pragmatic tools to put into use right away. I have the pleasure of introducing to you Donna Knox, our presenter today. Donna is a freelance copy and content writer. She specializes in legal and pet services, web content, B2B, that's business to business, direct response, press releases, blogs, newsletters, white papers, landing pages, and more. She was an attorney for more than 20 years in Virginia. She was a legislative liaison in support of missing American servicemen, a former journalist, mediator, collaborative law professional, and guardian at Litem for children. Before I turn it over to Donna, I'd like to let you know that we are going to have plenty of opportunity at the end for Donna to answer all of your questions. All you'll need to do is type them into the chat box, and at the end, I'm going to read all those questions right back to her, and she'll be able to respond. So, without further ado, Donna, take it away.
Thank you, Susan, and greetings to everyone who's listening. This is Donna, and before we get started, I just want to add to what Susan said by saying that all of my career endeavors over the years have involved writing of some form. A few years ago, I decided I did not want to practice law anymore, and so I started training in copy and content writing, and then I launched a freelance business, and so I'm here today to share with you some of what I've learned in trying to promote my own business through the written word. So let's get started. There is a difference between copywriting and content writing. The trend now in marketing is to prefer content over copy, but we are going to take a look at each. Copywriting is basically an ad. It's a direct attempt at selling. There's really no substantive value other than the product or service, or perhaps giveaways or special offers that accompany the ad. But there is a high risk of your advertisement or copy type writing being tossed or overlooked because people just don't like to be sold. And I would note that copy per se is probably not the best option for an attorney's website, but there are some relevant takeaways. So for a couple of minutes, we're going to take a quick look at the formula and structure for writing copy before we move on to content. Many of the principles of copywriting are indeed relevant to providing content to promote your brand or your business. For example, you should know who you're appealing to. You can't tailor your message to the universe. You should ask yourself, why would someone stop and read your message? What's going on in his or her life that will make your services relevant? Position your services as a solution to your prospect's needs or wants or fears or other emotions. How will what you're offering make his or her life better? And very important, make your brand unique so that you stand out from your competitors. In other words, demonstrate what's called your USP, your unique selling proposition. Show how your services are different, better, cheaper, whatever. The slide you're looking at now shows some standard techniques that would attract a prospect's eye, whether in copy or content. These help your message stand out. Using these tools, you state your message and you also make it easy to read. Okay, so let's get into content because I think it's more relevant. Considering the formality of the legal profession, content, as opposed to copy, is arguably the better approach to building out a lawyer's website. Attorneys want to be seen as a solid professional, the expert, well-grounded, not a stereotypical salesperson. So rather than putting out a sales pitch, you offer relevant, useful information. The visitors to your website benefit from quality substance that you put out, and then when they need services you offer, they come to you. As an example, rather than brag about how you're the best elder law attorney in town, you write an article maybe about the signs of Alzheimer's, Or maybe you research facilities and you write reviews in a series of blog posts. You provide useful information and then come off as a knowledgeable expert. Inferentially, you're promoting yourself as the attorney to call with elder law issues. But let's make no mistake about it, it is the content itself that is the most important elements of the website. Everything else should support it. Links take the visitor to content on different pages. Colors set the mood and the feel. They also draw the eye to central points of the message. Font creates personality within your content. Punctuation emphasizes central aspects of your message. But the message itself comes through in the writing. So who is your target audience, your prospect? You need to know who you're trying to attract. And you start by building a persona. A persona is a specific archetype profile of a target audience. Demographics are things like age, education, location, work background. Psychographics are values, attitudes, interests, challenges. Technographics are how and where the content is likely to be viewed. An attorney might not do a formal study like a big corporation would, but you should consider who makes up the best target audience so that you can tailor your message and make it impactful. Think about the ideas that you see on the screen right now and how they apply to the person you are targeting in your practice. Ask yourself, what's the prospect's journey? And then make yourself the trusted guide. If you personalize your message, keeping in mind who you're writing to, rather than focusing on who you're writing about, which, let's face it, is yourself on your website, your content is more likely to touch the prospect, to make a connection, and move the prospect to reach out to you. I recently saw a documentary about the Mayo Clinic, and in it they made the statement, the needs of the patient come first. We don't treat disease, we treat patients. Similarly, an attorney doesn't take on a case. He or she takes on a client who has a case. So on your website, you should be reaching out to the person, connect with that person, and not speak directly to the case. A client wants to know what kind of a lawyer he or she is hiring. So you might want to put out things like, what is your approach to a case? Do you go for settlement when possible, or is it see you in court type of persona that you have? Do you meet and talk personally with the client throughout the case, or do you hand off to a paralegal after initial consultation? Do you get along well and try to work with opposing counsel, or stand your ground and make them go to the judge over every detail? Through your writings, you can project your style and your attitude, not only who you are as a person, but how you behave and conduct yourself as an attorney. So who are you? Legal representation is a personal experience. The prospect wants a professional, but not just a lawyer. They know they're getting a person who's going to be representing them as well. Clients have to give up a lot of personal information. They need to trust you, and they don't need to be intimidated. So how can you make them comfortable? Maybe give up some personal information of your own. Do you do community service? What's your professional background? What are your interests? Do you have any humanizing experiences that would be appropriate to include on your website? Being a professional doesn't mean you have to be arrogant or stuffy. Don't be afraid to be witty and friendly. When you're writing pieces or blogs or articles, look for opportunities to work in some things about you as a person. It sometimes can be a good technique in the right place to convey your message through story, not just through factual recitation. If you want a prospective client to get a sense of who you are, how can you do that without just listing a bunch of facts, adjectives, and boring statements? I'd like to take a look at one thing I tried on my website. Now, as a caveat, the site I have now is not for the practice of law. It's for freelance writing. But there are relevant takeaways from the examples that I'm going to show you. Take a couple of seconds, if you will, to read what's on the screen now. This is an example of what I could have written for my website. I wanted to use it as a message to the reader on my homepage. It's simple and straightforward. It answers a question, but to me, it's plain and uninteresting. It presents no personality. Instead, I went with something longer. I told a story into which I wrapped what I've done in the past, what I do now, and why. And I used the craft of writing to project my voice and to create interesting images in the prospect's mind. Take a couple of seconds, if you will, to read this first paragraph of the piece that I'm talking about. So here, I've begun to tell a story. It's not yet clear how that story relates to copy and content writing. But in the next few paragraphs, which I won't be showing you here today, I go on to talk about changes in my life. I explain that in folklore, the dragonfly represents transformation and self-realization. I point out that my past career as a journalist, an attorney, a POW, MIA advocate, all involved writing. And I underscore the fact that I want to write going forward. I finished the piece with this paragraph, if you take a couple of seconds to read it. So in 6 short paragraphs, I've told the reader a story of loss, transformation, where I've been, where I want to go, and why. And I did it in a non-traditional way. All of it says something about me as a person and my style of writing. Each of you has a unique story. It should be told in a way that sets you apart from your competitors, a way that conveys the message you want to put out, keeping in mind your goal of interesting prospective clients. You can make your writing stand out using the craft of writing, tools like voice, tone, wit, cadence, and how you turn a phrase. Let's take one more look at what I mean. This is how I might have ended the About Donna page on my website. Again, it's plain and straightforward. There's nothing wrong with it, except it's how many other such pages end. It doesn't stand out in either content or style. I wanted to dress it up a little, put some of my style to it. So if you take a second to read this, this essentially says the same thing, but the hawk and the squirrels add a little flair, if you will. It's a different and unexpected way to end the piece. We all have to figure out for ourselves what personality we want to project and what content we want to use to get our message and our brand across to the reader. You can find opportunities to project both message and personality in a homepage message to the reader, in the About Me page, maybe a blog, a newsletter, some featured articles. But there are also opportunities to have your message and personality conveyed by third parties. Take a couple seconds, if you will, to read this testimonial. It's obviously from a satisfied client. Okay, so in this example, the client conveys confidence in the attorney, Zorro. It's someone who has worked with Zorro and would not be raving if Zorro hadn't done a good job, so it has credibility. Zorro doesn't have to brag about himself, which would convince few, if any, prospects. A couple of key points about the testimonial, though. Never falsify one. Anonymous is not as good or as convincing as one that's signed. And use the client's own words. You can gather those by presenting the client with a client satisfaction questionnaire, and then pull together quotes from the answers, and then show the condensed version to the client and get permission in writing before you ever put it up on the website. A variation of the testimonial is the endorsement. It carries the weight of a respected, credentialed professional who has reason to know what he's talking about and who puts his or her own reputation on the line by making this statement. So one assumes he wouldn't do so if he didn't believe what he's saying. If you take a second or two to finish reading the endorsement. In my mind, the most impactful statement here is the one at the end. The writer respects Zorro's skills so much that he prefers not to have to go up against him. That says a lot. Now, someone else can say that about you, but you can't. A prospect is more persuaded because the testimonial and the endorsement come from someone other than the attorney, him or herself. Another way to present yourself is through a case study. It's the show, don't tell mode. It's written by a third party, not you. No one claims authorship. It sets out a particular client's scenario. A pseudonym is okay. Of course, it's better if it's authentic and the client is named, but either choice. So the case study takes the reader through a troublesome scenario, how you helped resolve problems, why you made decisions, and the obstacles you faced along the way, how you handled them. It closes by stating, usually, how well the client is doing after the representation has concluded. It is a neutral, objective profiling of a successful case. It does not directly assess you as an attorney. It demonstrates, though, how you tackle problems, navigate the terrain, and guide a client along the path to resolution. These are all important qualities, and you don't have to lay them out yourself. Let's take a look at how the alternative comes across. The quotes you're looking at now were extracted from a somewhat dense and lengthy statement about a particular attorney on his website. They contain what many people would consider hyperbole. They're not subtle, that's for sure. And taken together, they really seem more like a sales pitch. This one was written in the third person, but not attributed to or claimed by anyone. It wasn't a case study. So the reader assumes that the attorney wrote it about himself, and therefore the raves are unconvincing. They seem like bragging, and they put the reader off. This attorney, in my view, would have been better off having one of his thrilled clients write a testimonial, or a colleague endorse his overwhelming court demeanor. Or maybe have a writer prepare a case study that demonstrates his negotiated results are indeed fantastic and his acquittal rate are incredible. This might seem like it should go without saying, but nothing takes away from your message like misspellings, grammatical mistakes, glaring punctuation issues. Suddenly you're not the authoritative professional you want your prospect to believe that you are. And you'd be surprised how many typos you will find on attorney sites if you go looking. It's a good idea to have someone else proof your content even after you've read it a dozen times. Let's take a look at some actual content that has substance, offers something to the prospect that will add value to his or her life, and indirectly lend credibility and drawing power to the attorney. On this screen, you're seeing something that comes from a personal injury attorney. Jason Stone is his name. He works in Boston. This is behind his community service tab. Now, the fact that Stone gives back to the community has nothing to do with how good of an attorney he is, but it has everything to do with what kind of a person he is and how a prospect will perceive him. And what's more, it sets him up to do what he does here. He talks about the brain injury prevention helmet giveaway program that he participates in, but then on that same page, he sets forth an article that's chock full of information about brain injuries. Now, there's a lot of information and details on his page that I have not shown you here. It's all underneath each of these headings that I've pulled. So what Stone has done is he's tied his community service to helpful content, and then it all relates back to one of the types of cases he just happens to handle. It's a perfect example of content, offering valuable information that will drive a prospect to his practice when they need services that he offers. This also is from Stone's website. If you click on the link that he shows you here, you land on a page that gives valuable information about sneaky or conniving conduct that you might expect from an insurance company after you've been in an accident. Without saying it directly, Stone is showing what he knows and that hiring him would protect you or the prospective client from potentially devious conduct that could harm the case. And I would add that throughout his website, Stone weaves personal information, testimonials, a sense of his character, and valuable content into his overall message. What's more, everywhere you go on his site, there are links to start a live chat, to sign up for a free case evaluation, or to provide your email so you can sign up for his newsletter, which would contain ongoing information. So it's all practical, valuable content, and I believe for the most part, he has a good site. I do, however, have one criticism. When you land on Stone's homepage, this is what you see. It's all you see. Boston skyline, a picture of Jason Stone, and his tabs and things like that. But there's no content. All of his good content is buried in the site. Now, the site's not hard to navigate, but he's assuming the visitor will be motivated to explore his site without any substantive reason to do so. In my opinion, this banner picture should be smaller. Jason Stone should have substantive content on the homepage above the fold, which would catch the prospect's eye with information that then would make him or her want to read on. This is another attorney's website. I would say that above what you're looking at here, there is a banner picture. It's large, but it's not consuming. It has a picture of the attorneys that practice at the firm. It's not necessary for you to read all the information you see up here because for this slide, we're talking about the look of the page. Here you've got testimonials on the left. You've got leader blurbs down the center that link to more in-depth information about the attorneys and their practice. You've got plenty of white space. It's easy on the eyes, not overwhelming. And the monotony of the black font is broken up by splashes of color here and here. There are tabs leading to more content in newsletters and articles and consumer advice in a blog. Also, you'll get the free consultation invite and live chat. All of it's on the homepage. It's easy to read. It may not be as pretty as a picture of the Boston skyline, but the prospect is not looking to hire a skyline or a lovely sunset. They're looking to hire an attorney. Finally, I just want to remind you about your USP, the unique selling proposition. What makes you different from the others? There are a lot of attorneys. Most of them are qualified. It can be helpful to look at other websites, get an idea of what you like, what you don't think works, but then pull together content and supporting elements that will catch your prospect's attention, show who you are, how and why you're the one they should turn to. And you can do this both directly and indirectly. Before we leave, I just want to say here's a couple of resources that might be helpful to you. Brian Clark is a content marketing expert. American writers and artists are also content and copywriting experts. They also have many resources and they offer a large number of tutorials and webinars. And then Marketing 360 is a marketing platform for small business, and they also have good information. So that's it. I want to thank you all for being here. There is a lot more to writing persuasive content and building it into a compelling website than we had time to go over here today. If you have questions or need help developing your professional message, feel free to reach out to me. But for now, I'm going to turn it back over to our host, Susan at LOMAP, for any questions you might have. Thank you.
Terrific. Donna, thank you so much. This was so informative, so interesting. I want to give people a little bit of time to write in their questions. Just go right into the chat box, put your question in there, and I will make sure that it gets read to Donna and she'll answer it. In the meantime, I was wondering, I loved your suggestion about including content on your web page, like immediately. I was wondering if you could say a little bit more, maybe how much should be there, you know, maybe what percentage of the page, should be content and what percentage should be, information about your law firm?
Well, I ran into this when I was building my freelance writing website. At first, mine looked a little like Jason Stone's, because when you land, you don't get the entire homepage. So I rearranged things to make sure that at least something about my message, about me, and what I'm offering a prospective client appears when they land. And if you can capture their attention there, even if it's like the first paragraph or a few lines of a piece, then they can scroll down. They don't have to even navigate behind a tab or whatever, but have something of value or interest above the fold. And it doesn't have to be able, as I say, be completed above the fold, just at least begun.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Interesting. I have another question. So how do you recommend that lawyers choose the content to write about? I mean, the part that's not about themselves.
Sure. Well, I think a lot of that would depend on what specialty they're in. If I practiced family law for most of my 23 years, and so I would write articles or blog posts about custody issues, things that you should never do when you're in a heated custody battle or divorce situation. Of course, you have to be careful as an attorney. You can't be giving advice per se. You have to always have the reminder up there that you're not anyone's particular attorney, and if they need legal advice, they need to hire an attorney of their own. But about yourself, to the extent that you think it communicates something that a prospective client would like to know about you and would endear you to them, set you apart from the next guy. But mostly do research that your client or prospective client wouldn't have the time or inclination to do, and then provide substantive information, like the example that I gave for elder law. I mean, there's any number of facilities. There are. My mother was recently put into one, and I had to research how we were going to pay for it, and what the different facilities offered. Things to look out for and be afraid of, and make sure you have checked into. So I would base it around what kind of practice I'm going to have.
And you mentioned at the beginning being aware of your prospects' demographics, psychographics, and technographics. Can you speak a little bit more about the relationship you want your content to have to the psychographics?
Well, there is an adage within the copy and content industry that it's emotions that you should be appealing to, that people buy out of emotion, they hire out of emotion. I don't mean like they're breaking down, crying type of emotion, but life is kind of driven by the things that you worry about and hope for and wish for and so forth. So for me, and as a family law attorney, I would want to, on my website, reach out to people who I know are going through one of the more difficult periods in their life. I would want to show empathy for that, the fact that they're maybe angry and frustrated and fearful. Those are all things to identify in my mind, so that when I'm writing content for my website, I am trying to connect with them on that level and give them some measure of confidence that I could understand all of that and represent them accordingly.
We have one more question. Should we not include links to other sites, for example, to the Bar Association or to Fine Law?
What was the last one? Fine Law?
Fine Law. It was just, should we not, the way the question was written, should we not include links to other sites?
I think it's fine to include links to other sites if you think that it would be helpful information for the visitor to your website. It's another form of valuable content. It's pointing them to information that can help them travel through the journey that they're obviously experiencing because they're looking for an attorney.
Makes sense. So Donna, thank you so much for your time and your expertise. Your advice was wonderful. I want to let everybody know we will be providing a recording of this session completely, and also a copy of Donna's slides on our website in the next few well, days or weeks. I'm not entirely sure how long it's going to take to get up there, but it will be up there. I want to thank you all for tuning in to this month's webinar, and please keep an eye out for next month's seminar. We will be posting that information shortly. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and have a terrific afternoon.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, Donna.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.